Urgently, Gerasimov has seriously set up Putin and robbed his own army. While soldiers are dying on the front lines and cities are burning, the Kremlin elite is counting their profits. You have to see this. Russian might is actually a fake. Unimaginable wealth was found in the general's pockets, all behind the dictator's back. The commander is hanging by a thread. Will it come to the point where the guilty are punished? Or will General Gerasimov continue to enrich himself against the bloody backdrop of war, showering Putin with flattering words? We'll find out in just a moment.
Corruption, luxury, and cronyism. These are the three pillars supporting the hybrid general, chief of the general staff, Valery Gerasimov. Compared to his former colleagues, his patron Sergei Shoigu and Shoigu's money man Timur Ivanov, the withered, silent Gerasimov looks as poor as a church mouse. But let that not fool anyone.
You sit here in these expensive clubs, surrounded by luxury and comfort, enjoying the atmosphere and the company of others who share your lifestyle. Meanwhile, your kids are out there, living it up, going to parties, meeting friends, and capturing their experiences on video. They film these moments for YouTube, sharing their lives online for everyone to see. You think that you have everything under control, that you know what is happening in their lives, and that you have provided them with everything they need. Gerasimov
is the author of the hybrid warfare formula that the Russians first tested in Donbass and then in Syria. And as of January 2023, he was appointed commander of the joint group of occupying forces in Ukraine. And he is hardly any different from other armchair generals who sacrifice thousands on the battlefield and make millions off the war. The only thing that sets silent Gerasim apart is his extraordinary secrecy. He doesn't give interviews and tries to hide all information about his property. But even the scraps of information that journalists have found make it clear the military official lives far beyond his salary. The official income of the Gerasimov family is a secret. Journalists are working with figures from before the full-scale invasion.
Gerasimov's declaration is deliberately modest. The official income of Gerasimov's wife since 2009 is just under 31 million hryvnias. At the same time, the general received almost a third of this amount in 2018. On average, the chief of the general staff earns 2.9 million hryvnias per year, and his wife earns a bit more, 167,000 hryvnias. However, the value of his real estate is completely disproportionate to these amounts. Journalists have estimated that the family of the head of the Russian general staff, Valery Gerasimov, owns property worth between 100 and 150 million hryvnias. How this was purchased on an annual income of 3 million hryvnias remains an open question. Was it a gift, or did the state provide it as a perk? It's unclear.
Despite his modest salary as a military official, he managed to purchase an apartment in an elite building not far from the GRU headquarters. At first, the apartment, worth about 50 million rubles, was registered in his wife's name, but later her name disappeared from the records. The couple also became co-founders of the Afinieva Developers Association in the village of the same name in the Rafamin district of the Moscow region.
Here, she acquired ownership of a cottage at 6 Nova Street with an area of 554 square meters and a cadastral value of 20 million hryvnias. And a few years later, he finished building a bathhouse of 236.3 square meters. Though it turns out it's not exactly traditional, with a real jacuzzi. Gerasimov also owns 2 land plots here with a total area of 4,313 square meters. The market value of all this real estate could reach 100 million rubles.
However, Valery Gerasimov hardly ever relaxes at the dacha. It's his son and daughter-in-law who spend time here. Thanks to her photos, we can get an idea of the interior decor of the military official's apartment. By the way, Gerasimov gave his son a separate apartment as a wedding gift, almost 200 square meters, worth over 30 million rubles. And in addition, 2 parking spaces as well.
Gerasimov is the quintessential Russian military commander of the Putin era. A murky biography, a lack of professionalism, and no sign of patriotism either. Just endless loyalty and devotion to Putin.
Valery Gerasimov didn't just provide his entire family with hundreds of square meters of real estate. He surrounded the entire Russian Ministry of Defense system with his relatives, including nephews and in-laws. And his son, Yevgeny Valerievich, an employee of the main Directorate for International and Military Cooperation, even managed to obtain the status of a combat veteran. Obviously, with all the corresponding payments and benefits. However, on which fronts Yevgeny Gerasimov actually fought is also a big secret. Just like the real list of his father's assets.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Urgently, the enemy has launched a new offensive from Zaporizhzhia. Putin is glaring like a wild beast toward Huliapol. The focus has shifted. Zelensky is urgently heading to the front. The armed forces of Ukraine are splitting the enemy's forces. Hellish battles have begun. The enemy is already on our hook. The screams of the occupiers can be heard from afar. It's the sound of their failure. Putin would be better off keeping quiet about this. What is happening there now, and at what cost every meter is gained? You'll find out in just a moment.
The troops of the Russian Federation have shifted their priorities and launched an offensive on other sections of the front.
As of today, Russian occupation forces have concentrated their main strike in the Zaporizhzhia region, aiming to encircle Huliapol from the eastern and northern sides.
In the Zaporizhzhia direction, Russian forces are increasing the pressure.
To achieve this, they recently crossed the Yanchul River, which allowed them to directly reach the settlements of Sladke, Ravnopole, and also Yablukove.
The occupiers are rapidly advancing towards Zaporizhzhia and bypassing the defensive line through the Dnipropetrovsk region. From
the north along the Yanchul River, Russian occupation forces are trying to increase pressure both on the Dnipropetrovsk region and towards Pokrovske, through the interfluve of the Volchya and Varanaya rivers, and along the Yanchul on both the right and left banks.
In the direction of Huliapol, the occupiers are trying to cut off Ukrainian logistical routes along two highways.
They are establishing a connection towards Pokrovsk, and this will secure their logistics, allowing them to push as many as 10 regional armies onto this bridgehead, increasing troop density, and then forming a strike towards Zaporizhzhia.
The Russian command is giving increasing priority to the Huliapol direction. Reinforcements are being transferred here from the Dobropilia direction, from near Pokrovsk. The situation near Huliapol is tense. This is also reported by the American Institute for the Study of War. Since the end of August 2025, Putin's army has managed to capture approximately 250 square kilometers of territory. Deep State shows that the front line runs less than 1 kilometer south of Huliapol and 6 kilometers northeast of the city.
Overall, the field with Apollos and the fields lead to the Tselina Balka, which is a landscape reserve located south of Rivnopilia. Essentially, there are only a few kilometers left to Huliapol, about 5 to 7 kilometers, depending on the direction.
The commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, reported a significant deterioration of the situation in the Huliapol direction the day before.
The situation has significantly worsened in the Oleksandrivka and Huliapol directions, where the enemy, taking advantage of their numerical superiority in forces and equipment, advanced during fierce fighting and captured 3 settlements. The soldiers of the Southern Military Group are engaged in exhausting battles for Rivnopilia and Yablukove. Appropriate support measures are being taken. The aggressor has suffered significant losses from combined fire.
Russian military correspondents have also recently reported on the Russians' advance toward Huliapol. Units of the Vostok Group are advancing on the Ukrainian city.
You have to carefully watch your step, very carefully, because there are a lot of hidden mines. And constantly keep an eye on the sky, because their unmanned aerial vehicles, such as FPV drones, are everywhere.
This is the Russians' new operational concept. Gradual attrition of Ukrainian defenses using infiltration tactics. According to Ukrainian military sources, the enemy is suffering significant losses while attempting to advance. Huliapol is a very important settlement in the defense of Zaporizhzhia. This is also noted by war correspondents.
After Huliapol comes Orikhiv. And then, apart from Komishuvaka and Stepanohirsk, there will be little left to stop the enemy from approaching the southern outskirts of Zaporizhzhia. This will also affect the urban-type settlement of Pokrovsky. If the enemy captures it as well, they will be able to reach Vilnyansk.
The Russian army systematically carries out airstrikes on Pokrovsk in the Dnipropetrovsk region. The footage shows the consequences of Russia's terrorist acts. Destroyed cars, ruined houses. This is the center of the settlement.
In the current moment,
the Russians' plans are to strike at the rear, to complicate supply lines, destroy logistics and drone operators, as well as to carry out targeted penetrations into the rear. After that, small assault groups conduct operations trying to advance quickly and force Ukrainian units to abandon their positions. But
this is such a deeply negative and troubling development of losses that it could very well become a precursor to the eventual formation of a bridgehead and the establishment of conditions for the Russian occupation forces, which in the future could even potentially allow them to organize an offensive operation toward the city of Zaporizhzhia.
President Volodymyr Zelensky made a working visit to the front in the Zaporizhzhia region. He listened to reports from the commanders.
Good health to you guys. Glory to Ukraine.
Good health. Glory. I have
The honor to be here today and to award the soldiers of the 65th Brigade. Thank you for what you do for defending Ukraine.
Despite the enemy's efforts, the fighting continues. The best assault units are battling for every centimeter of our land. The ground is melting under the Kremlin's feet. Every Ukrainian strike knocks Russia off balance and makes it gasp in helplessness. Ukraine is squeezing Putin in an iron vice. On the energy front, it's real thunder, and Russia's fattest targets are already in the sights of our defenders. The shadow of catastrophe looms over Moscow, and there are no escape routes. Darkness lies ahead. Ukrainian forces have hinted at what awaits the occupiers as soon as tomorrow. This is something you need to hear.
More and more Russian cities are plunging into darkness. If the Russians attack Ukraine's energy system, Ukraine will attack Russia's. The Ukrainian authorities warned about this, and the defense forces have demonstrated it clearly. The cover
Was removed.
This is what the Voronezh thermal power plant looks like now, for example. It was attacked on November 9th. Reports say there were at least 3 direct hits. After the explosions, part of the city was left without electricity.
Voronezh is quite a significant city, playing an important role in its region. Voronezh is home to a considerable number of enterprises, including various businesses and factories. These enterprises are a key part of the city, and that's exactly why Voronezh is recognized for its economic importance.
Where the difference lies between Russian and Ukrainian strikes on the energy system. In addition to a deserved response, the goal of the Ukrainian defenders is to plunge into darkness those energy infrastructure facilities that support the operation of Russia's defense industry.
This is dual-use equipment. First of all, it's really about showing Russia that they're not the only ones who can do this. We can respond in kind to certain things as well. And indeed, in order to truly attempt to stop their powerful and relentless machine and to undermine and weaken the vast military-industrial complex that is actively and continuously working against us in this ongoing war, we must be both vigilant and persistent.
That is, at first glance, it's like pecking away at the Russian energy system, gradually knocking out various elements of their infrastructure. So, at first glance, it might just seem satisfying that somewhere in Belgorod the lights went out, or in Voronezh. But let's think about it. In some ways, the overall configuration and structure of the Russian energy system might actually be quite similar to ours, particularly in the sense that the power supply or the electricity that is generated and distributed comes from some of the same sources as ours does. So,
all these attacks are not random. The goal is not just to respond, but to respond painfully, so that the facilities supplying power to the military-industrial complex of the aggressor country can no longer fuel the Kremlin's ambitions.
when certain crucial and vital elements of the overall integrity and stability of the Russian energy system are gradually and systematically taken out of operation, it primarily means that somewhere at some point a train carrying something absolutely essential and critical for the ongoing war effort will come to a halt and stop, or there will be rolling blackouts and power outages at a factory that is producing things and materials the Russians desperately need for the war, and
not all such enterprises are located deep in the rear, experts say. Many of these facilities are situated not far from the Ukrainian border. For example, the strategic bombers Tu-95MS are repaired in Taganrog, and one of the manufacturers of components for the Russian missile program, specifically solid fuel for Iskanders, is located just 150 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. It is entirely possible to plunge them into electrical darkness. There are undoubtedly such important facilities for the Russian military-industrial complex in the Moscow region as well. And not just there, even in Moscow itself. I
think that the psychological effect of plunging Moscow into darkness would be much more effective than just hitting a few factories there. Because it's precisely this main mass, as they call it, the office plankton, who live off the regions. Finally, it will dawn on them that something is happening and that something needs to be done.
In this way, Ukraine will kill not 2, but 3 birds with 1 stone at once. A fair response is the paralysis of Russian military-industrial complex facilities and psychological pressure on the Kremlin. Sounds like the perfect target for the next blackout.